Good morning, Roger.
Good morning.
Roger, I got lots of notes here that I have made.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, stuff that I know you'll be interested in.
I'm excited.
What'd you have for breakfast?
Coffee.
Do you always just drink coffee before you do your exercise program?
I drink coffee no matter what I'm doing.
Me too.
I'm trying to promote and save all the starving Colombian children.
That sounds just like you, Roger. Man, I've been excited. I've been thinking about this off and on all night. We got the Roger Dykes Just Sayin podcast that we get to record and produce and get ready to go. Is that coffee right there?
Yes, sir. It is coffee right there.
I noticed it. It said Pearl on the side of that cup there. Oh, we have a lot of fun at your expense.
And I'm pretty cheap.
Oh, I really did have some questions I was going to ask you before we got started. And
too late.
Like so many things nowadays, I didn't write them down, so they escaped me. Roger, I'm glad you missed the COVID bandwagon. I'm glad you didn't get on that.
Yes, sir. That was a bandwagon that I was happy to watch from the sidelines.
Man, oh man.
Well, Michael, I hate to burst your bubble, but what you've just described is really old age.
I tell you, now wait a minute. You know me personally, and you know that I, like my father before me, I have always had a real full head of hair. And that, too, Elvis has left the building. And the doctors say it'll come back, but now my hair is real thin. And, I mean, you can see my scalp all over my head. You think it doesn't matter unless you've been that way your whole life with a thick head of hair, and then suddenly you don't have it. And, I mean, my hair just reacts differently. You get out of the shower and comb your hair, and it just boing, all sticks straight out everywhere. And it's a new deal, man.
I just thought you were copying my hairstyle.
Roger,
my hair sticks out like that too,
You are the Casanova of the disabled set.
Oh, ha ha.
I look at you on camera while we do these.
I don't do that
interviews.
To you, of course.
No. Oh, but I will tell you, there's actually some news on the horizon. I was just about to buy a camera, and it's a pretty good camera that would be used as our studio layout camera for the rare instances that we would need one. But I know that I should do that because you sit and look at a black screen with my name on it, and but I get to watch you in living color while we do these things. And so I thought, well, if not only just for Roger, we get that. And we were in the middle of ordering it. And it was one of those internet deals, which I should know better by now. But by the time they get your credit card number and all that sort of thing, they start saying, now there will be an additional shipping charge of so-and-so, so-and-so, and you're probably going to need this hookup or that hookup. Or would you like a charger, or do you want it just to run down after a couple of days and you can't ever use it again? Those are $29.95 and all of that stuff. And they just went on. And I said, wait a minute. I told Kathy, I said, stop. We can go down to Best Buy and we can get what we're looking for, and we know what we're buying when we start in buying it. I said, this was a faith deal on the internet anyway, and we stopped doing it because, oh man, I get so tired of those deals. So we didn't order the camera, but we came close. We came very close, Roger.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also hope we're getting advertisement payment from Best Buy if you're going to plug them. Or perhaps you, perhaps you're planning on getting the camera free.
I have trained you well, Padawan. Yes. I'm glad you see things now that once upon a time I don't know that you saw, but you do now. So, well, I think we should do the podcast.
Okay.
Is this going to be one of those days where I just get a bunch of one-word answers out of you?
No, but only if you ask one-word questions.
Okay, I'll ask you what time it is, and you can explain carefully how to build a Swiss watch. That's the old Roger I'm used to. I mean, I'm lucky you showed up this morning.
Well, I think you're just being normal.
All right, roll 'em. Hello, I'm Michael Shawn, and welcome to Roger Dykes Just Sayin. Roger Dykes is a teacher and counselor with a master's degree in family counseling from Texas Tech University. He is the owner of UV Blake Records and has written a book titled Non-Persons Rolling in a Normal World. And there's a few more things. Roger was born with cerebral palsy. Now a quadriplegic, he has been confined most of his life to a wheelchair. And for a while, even enjoying a career as a stand-up or sit-down comedian and after-dinner speaker. Disabled? Yes, but you forget about that pretty quickly because Roger thrives. So here is Roger Dykes.
Hey there, Michael. Good to have you back. It's good to be with you.
Man, it is good. How's my dark screen this morning?
It's great. The white letters shine really bright.
We got creative people that put this stuff together, right?
I'm sure you do. You know, I've thought about this a lot. I've been talking to you about the camera idea, but the more I think about it, I may regret it when you get a camera because I may go back to wishing I had the white letters on the black screen. You don't always look that good, you know. Of course, you could point the camera at Kathy. That would help.
You know, we might go ahead and say, usually we don't break this wall, but we say these programs, your podcast, of course, is every 3 weeks. We actually record the podcast on a Saturday morning, usually. And so Saturday mornings, things are a little bit more laid back around the studio here and this sort of thing. And you're right. I have only the best T-shirt and gym shorts on a lot of times when I'm doing the show here. But we're an audio show. People don't see that sort of thing. But you, Roger, you are always dressed fit to kill. I'm serious. I mean, look at you. Your hair's combed, and you have a nice shirt with a collar. Man, I'm telling you. You don't have a female companion coming over later, do you? Is that what this is all about?
I have a person coming over sometime this morning to pour my coffee, and she is a female, yes.
Well,
she's not exactly. She's a friend, but not a companion.
Oh, well, okay. Hey, I was thinking, as long as we're on this subject.
Yes, sir.
I'm thinking a mustache and a goatee. That would be, Roger, why don't you grow a mustache and kind of a little goatee beard, you know? And that's the style now, Roger. That's very stylish.
Well, I'll answer that for you. You probably don't remember it, but there was a period of time when I did have a mustache. Never had the goatee. Had the mustache. However, when you're disabled, you're unable to trim said mustache.
Oh.
So therefore, it becomes a major issue and problem that is easily solved by not having one.
Just another reason, let me point this out, just another reason why maybe a girlfriend here and there, a female companion to share the fireside and trim your mustache, push your cuticles back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I just don't know where to get it.
They don't come to your house and bang on the door and find you, huh?
No, not by a long shot.
I can remember my single days. I had the same problem. Oh, Roger. Okay, so it's been 3 weeks, and a lot of water has gone under the bridge. For previous listeners of the podcast, Roger probably still deals with all of the things that he's been dealing with. But is there anything new on your horizon?
Well, we've had a few things that have happened that I was aware of, but I'm more aware of now than I was then. I don't know if you know it or not, but of course, the state, and I appreciate very much their help in all that goes on. But in addition to the class program that I'm on, which provides the caregivers, there are also other state agency and programs that provide equipment for me to use. For
people in other places, this is the state of Texas that you're talking about.
Yes, it is the state of Texas, and they are very kind to provide these things. However, there's always a however, but however, there is a significant problem with the way they have these things set up. For example, they will buy you good equipment, and they buy you sometimes the very best equipment, and you can very much appreciate that. They buy lifts, wheelchairs, adjustable beds, all these things, and they're wonderful and needed. I would not be able to function without my equipment here.
Roger, did you say that they buy whips? I'm sorry, I may have misunderstood you there.
I think you misunderstood. That's a different agency. This is the one that buys wheelchairs and adjustable beds.
Oh, beds. Okay, that's what you said. Yeah.
And lifts, which I use to get in and out of bed and so forth. Now, that is wonderful, and I'm very thankful for it. However, there is, in my estimation, a major glitch in their arrangement, because they will not allow you to purchase extra controls or extra things that you're going to need if it goes out. In other words, you have all these different gadgets that they provide have hand controls, which makes it go up and down or shut off, turn on.
But Roger, you can't use your hands.
Well, I have limited, but the caregivers can.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So they can make all this work, and they do, and I'm thankful for that as well. But the problem is the state of Texas and federal government, I suppose, and I'm sure it's because they're worried about Medicaid fraud, but they will not allow you to buy an extra hand control for any object that they buy you. For example, I have a bed. It's an adjustable bed. I'm very thankful for that bed. But without that adjustable bed, the lift doesn't work, and I cannot get out of bed. They will not allow me to buy an extra hand control. If my hand control goes out, I will not be able to raise the bed up, and I will not be able to get out of bed as I'm supposed to.
Well, now, Roger, a thinking person at this point, let me interrupt you just for a moment here, would say, how often does that happen? Is this an occurrence that happens frequently? The hand control will quit working, even though if it's just every now and then, it's a huge problem. But it will probably only go out once. Okay. But the longer you get, when you've had something for 2 or 3 or 4 years and you've used it and you realize that the buttons
of the control are getting harder to push down.
Oh, so you can kind of tell when one is circling the drain, so to speak.
Yes, sir, that is true. The only problem is they will not buy you another one until it goes down the drain.
And it takes how long for you to receive?
Oh, it can take up to 3 or 4 days or whatever. In those days that I don't have a bed that will raise up, I'm not sure what we're going to do. I foresee a problem. I've discussed the problem, but I have no solution to the problem.
Well, Roger, they've got their rules.
Yes, sir.
They have these rules so that they don't get caught. Perhaps providing.
The problem is, Michael, that the people who make the rules have never been in bed and have never had the problem of not being able to get out of bed.
Exactly. Yes.
And then I understand that you could get an extra hand control, I suppose, that you really didn't need, and you could sell it on eBay or something. I don't know. But to me, balancing the cost of one problem over the other, I would, if I were the state of Texas, accept the potential loss that might happen with someone who bought one fraudulently and sold it over having disabled people who cannot function because they're waiting for a control to come in.
Well, naturally, if you were a family member where there were other people involved in your care, and if the people making that decision had a family member, then they would come a lot closer to understanding the situation. And let me point this out too, Roger, for our listeners that may be listening for the first time. We're talking about one little situation. It's like, oh, you're giving all this podcast time to this one deal. Well, let's just get you another one of those gizmos and you'll be good. This is one situation. There are many, many, many more that deal from not only equipment to the caretakers themselves. And it's tough, baby, because if things happen, if there's bad weather, if there's a power failure, if there is just any of the myriad of things that can happen to anybody, it is so much more serious for you, and you feel the need to maybe prepare a little.
Well, and the thing is, some of the things that could be done to prepare for these eventualities that are going to happen could be arranged for early if the state would work with us. But if the state is so fearful, I'm assuming the rule is in place because of potential Medicaid fraud. I don't know that, but I assume it. But we're talking about buttons and gadgets that are maybe $100, $200, $300. Now that's chump change to the government, but it's a major loss to me because on this program, I don't have that kind of money to just go down and buy another one or find another one or whatever. And that's the reason. And I'm sure there's others like me. And we're sitting here going, okay, we see it going out. I have a second example. There is a Lyft remote on my a Lyft remote that they very unwisely, very, very, very unwisely built with air pressure instead of connection. In other words, you push the button in, and the air within the button activates the lift.
Okay.
Well, that's all fine and good, except the button over time gets a crack in it.
Yeah.
Then the air doesn't work, and then the whole thing doesn't work. Now, I know when it's coming.
Now, explain, and I don't know that we did a good enough a job on the bed control deal, even in this regard, but explain when that happens. It's not should it happens. It's not if it happens. It's when it happens. And when that happens, What kind of inconvenience is that to you?
Well, when that happens, it stops working. When it stops working, I can't use it. When I can't use it, I was literally the other day, with the help of my caregiver, she literally, no joke, drug me out of bed and barely got me into the wheelchair sufficient to get under a lift that was working, since the one we normally use had stopped working. So it is a very challenging and dangerous situation for both myself and the caregiver.
You could have been easily stranded, laying in
Yes.
your bed, and not.
Then you have to call 911, and they send people out, and all this takes time, money, and energy, and cost the taxpayers more money, because they're having to pay the extra run of the fire department or the EMS or whatever.
So when a 911 call is made because a little $100 unit, you weren't able to replace it for days, each one of those 911 calls cost, a lot of money, and the state thinks that it is good business to pay for those to keep you living and breathing, as opposed to preparing for an eventuality that is going to happen with a little extra this or that, so that you're prepared to take care of the situation. And that is just simple good sense.
Well, that's my understanding. Now, perhaps, as I always say on every podcast, there's a lot of things I don't know. And there may be very good reasons why they have done the reason they're doing what they're doing. But I do not see any logic to paying out bigger bucks to have me taken care of by the emergency crew, as opposed to spending a little other money.
Roger, if I understand what you're saying, you're always so eloquently saying that you're thankful, and that's important. And I appreciate that about you, that you have gratitude for the things that they do to help you. But yet it has been so long since anyone really, I think, listened closely to situations like yours that need immediate attention. They need to change their mind on some decisions that have made over the last 15 or 20 years or more. It gets back to the same old thing, and that is, it is really hard. People in a position to make a decision to change just what we've talked about this morning.
That is absolutely true. That's the biggest problem I'm having. I think I have sufficient information to make some at least intelligent suggestions, but you have to find someone with authority to listen, because I can talk to people around Lubbock all day long. I can talk to you, for example, and you will listen to my situation and my potential solutions, and you'll say, my Roger, that makes a lot of sense, and we should look into that. But the problem is, you nor I have the power to change anything. So it doesn't do any good. But until we find the person who can say, that's a good idea, let me go administratively make some changes.
It's part of what the taxpayers paid them to do. And how can they provide services not only over years, but over decades, and really completely lose touch with the people that they're providing the services to? How can that be?
Well, part of it, I think, has to do with technology, because a lot of the rules and policies that were in place have not been updated and upgraded with the technology that we're now working with. So they're not aware of, what worked 20 years ago will still work, but the technology has changed. It won't work as well. There are better solutions out there. Now, again, I've not had the opportunity to have any of these ideas I have bounced around by people who have the money and the power to do anything. They may have a really very good reason why it's done the way it is. but I would suggest that their reason is not that good. It's just convenient.
Well, and you and I have talked about this before. There is COVID. There is a border that is shamefully out of control. The people in Washington, D.C. have refused to admit that there is even a situation that needs their attention. And that all falls into the lap of the people along the border, the county sheriffs, the states that are on the border, who are now being overrun by a lack of management on the border. There are, and it goes on and on. There are major universities that are crying out for help and wanting disaster relief. There is so much more, the unemployment. And I think sometimes, Roger, and this may be a little ugly to say, but then there are these disabled people who claim that they have special needs that are not being addressed, when we have told them that we are addressing their special needs. And it's just not the case. But how do you measure up and stand in line with all these other things that are happening?
I could really don't. That's the problem.
If I worked in the Capitol, I'd say, yeah, I know we need to take care of this, but right now we've got bigger fish to fry. You know what I mean?
Well, for example, in Texas specifically, when you're talking about the border situation and the health crisis that it is bringing into our state and the health issues that are being brought by that one problem, the same group of people who make the policy decisions for this small program that I'm on are the ones who are now overwhelmed with the possibility of COVID coming in across the border in the illegal alien situation. Which one do you think is more important? Which one would the country want to have taken care of? Would you rather take care of COVID people who are not being treated at the border, or would you rather take care of handicapped people who are living at home and getting by?
And again, this is maybe a little bit insensitive, but nobody's really worried about the guy down the street with cerebral palsy giving it to you.
Right. That's true. I mean, and I understand that. I'm not oblivious to the situation, but it still doesn't change my situation. And seemingly, government goes from one crisis to the next, so that there's never a time that you go, okay, have you got time to listen to me now? And government says, no, I'm sorry, we're busy with this problem.
But you can remember a time, can you not, when it wasn't necessarily completely that way.
True.
You can remember a time when you were very clear on, if this situation occurred or if that situation occurred, you know who to call, who to get in touch with, who to write a letter to, or an email. You knew, and now it's just a big foggy mess. And the point is that your needs and your concerns are very important, because you literally, and I'm not comfortable saying this, but it could literally cost your life.
Yes.
Over a few days.
No, you're right.
At any time. You're
exactly right. And that's, but again, to my world, in my world, my world, getting out of bed is far more important to me personally than all the illegal aliens coming across the border. But on the bigger scope of things and the broad scope of things, obviously they have to deal with that. So I'm very understanding of their problem, but it doesn't solve mine.
You are not one person. You represent a piece of the pie of people that are disabled like, for instance, cerebral palsy, where you have lost the use of your arms and your hands primarily and your legs. But you're very much alive, very much intelligent, and you have a lot to offer to your community and to your church and so on and so forth. And anyone that knows you goes, goodness, I wouldn't want anything to happen to Roger, yet here you are on this precarious edge of this cliff, knowing that at any time you could topple over. There's just so many things that could easily go wrong and affect you in such a huge negative way, but you have simple solutions, but you can't act on them. And this is not a situation where you're saying, oh, if they just spend a little money on me right here and we'll do this, but they won't. When you said a while ago, they won't let you buy $100 control piece. And most people would think, why don't you just buy it, Roger? But they have you knuckled down to where you're not to have any money. And if you do, it could have negative effects.
That is absolutely true. And also, I don't have money of that nature. I'm not destitute in the sense of not being able to buy anything at all. But when it comes to buying equipment, the prices on hand controls is extremely expensive, partly because, and this may be another podcast for us later, but partly because government, because it's being paid for by the government or insurance as a general rule, the manufacturers and the distributors are not really worried what they price something at.
Yeah.
Because the government's going to pay for it anyway, which means you're paying high prices for equipment because they have to factor in all the government paperwork they have to do to get it paid for. And so they jack the price up to make sure they get all that paid for. Well, when an individual comes in, like myself, without any government help and goes in and says, what does this control cost? A hand control for a lift can cost up to $500.
Yeah. Well, that's a problem that's been around for a long time. I mean, hammers, anything.
Right, exactly.
The government buys. Yeah.
It's the same principle. And that's the reason equipment is so expensive. Medical equipment is so expensive.
Roger, we haven't accomplished saving the world today, but we are very interested in saving you, brother. And we're out of time, man. I don't know where it goes when we get on here, but it just, and that's what it's done again. Roger, there are more and more people, because we hear from them consistently now, that are taking an interest in what you're talking about. It doesn't necessarily affect them directly, maybe, but there are a lot of folks that decide in their own mind that there are things that they like about the system in the culture that we live in, and that we do some things right. Our care of the disabled is one of those things that a lot of people, a lot of voters stand behind the government being able to help in those areas. But what we have now is a situation they're just simply not very responsive. Roger, we could go on, and I know you got lots of things, but this Roger Dykes Just Sayin podcast is one platform that we like to turn you loose and let you talk about this stuff. Roger, are you planning on showing up for the next one?
Well, I'm going to try to be here.
Okay. Man.
Lord willing and government provided, I'll be here.
All right. Well, bless you, brother. We'll see you in 3 weeks.
All right. Thank you.
You've been listening to Roger Dykes Just Sayin. If you'd like to get a message to Roger, his Facebook account is listed as Roger Dykes. Become a friend, or you can send your questions and comments to Roger Dykes 51 at gmail.com. That's ROGERDYKES51 at gmail.com. Our podcast reveals a new episode every 3 weeks. Rollout is on Wednesday evening, shortly after dark, Texas time. Join us next time for our next episode of Roger Dykes Just Sayin. I'm Michael Shawn. On behalf of Roger Dykes, thanks for listening.